Welcome to the Sooners360 Recruiting Podcast. I'm Chris Mason, lead recruit analyst for Sooners360. This video is sponsored by Sooners360 on Patreon. To support this video, please go to patreon.com/Sooners360-817 and click subscribe. It's only $2 a month. There's also a free trial option. I'm posting regular recruiting content there moving forward. The link will also be in the video description below. Sooners360 is part of the Believe Podcast Network. Every team, every topic, everywhere. This video covers the recent commitment to OU by 2025 offensive guard Darius Afalava from Utah. So in terms of a recruiting process, the official visits for Darius were Oklahoma, Utah, Washington, Michigan State. He was also involved with LSU and canceled an LSU visit, and probably would have visited Tennessee as well. He had offers from a number of recruiting powers: USC, UCLA, Michigan, FSU. So basically, he was a power four prospect, sort of across the country. So in terms of his visits to OU, Darius unofficially visited for the first time during OU spring game, made a serious connection with the OU staff, and OU offered him on that visit. OU had been tracking him for a while prior to that, and I think OU kind of wanted to see that he was serious about OU and that he was a fit for Oklahoma, and that unofficial visit kind of put all those pieces together, and OU started in earnest, heavily recruiting him. He visited on 6/8, and then OU was able to get his commitment just recently on 6/28 on the Friday. In terms of his recruiting rankings, Darius's rankings here are a little odd. They don't quite all add up. So Rivals has him as the number 230 player in the nation, the number one player in Utah, and the number 25th interior offensive lineman. And it's a really loaded offensive line class throughout the nation this year, both at tackle and interior. He's also rated as a top 30 interior offensive lineman by ESPN and 247, which somehow is keeping him at a high 3-star level. They have him as the 4th player in Utah. And then we've got the weird outlier, again, for an interior offensive lineman verbal commitment for OU, just like Eddie Pierre-Louis last year. They have, On3 has him as a number 76 player in the country. That's number 76 interior offensive lineman in the country, and also the number 7 player in Utah. So, last year On3 had Eddie Pierre-Louis as the number 63 interior offensive lineman in the country, at the same time that Rivals had Eddie as a top 35, top 40 player in the nation. So I think there's a good chance ESPN and 247 move Darius up, and his rankings reflect more that he's sort of a top 300, top 350 player in the country, just based upon his ranking in terms of interior offensive line. It's hard for me to believe that On3, didn't fix Eddie Pierre-Louis last year, and I don't see them fixing Darius Afalava this year. So I think they'll just remain an outlier. But overall, I feel pretty confident that Darius is going to end up as like a top 300, top 350 player, low 4-star on the other networks. He could even move up on Rivals. It's going to be hard, though, for an interior offensive lineman to make too much noise, and factoring in the fact it's just such a loaded class. So why do I think Darius is so good? So we're going to go look at his film, and I think his film sets the stage a little better. So Darius is he's, again, just like Eddie Pierre-Louis. If you could find 75 interior offensive linemen better than Darius, then you're a better person than I am, because when you just see him on film, He's just so physical. He's powerful. As you can see in a couple of those highlights, his punch just floors guys, just knocks them to the ground. He's got a little bit of a mean streak. He's playing guard and tackle in these highlights, primarily guard on running plays, and he's playing quite a, the tackle plays are primarily some pass pro sets. Although he wasn't, so he was, here he is, he's just manhandling a guy and just completely shoving him out of bounds. You can see his big man agility right there in a pass pro set. He's playing smaller guys. He's got he's got a good agility, good short area quickness, and he's got a big frame, and he's just burying guys in pass pro. He's about, he looks every bit 6'5", 320 in the photos I've seen. This is maybe my favorite highlight. He's just shoving that guy in the end zone. Shoved him 5 yards and then shoved him 2 further yards into the end zone. But Darius, I think with Jerry Schmidt is going to be about he's about 6'4.5", 6'5", and I think he's going to be 330 with limited bad weight. He's going to be if it's possible to be carrying 330 in a good way, I think Darius is going to do that. And with his athleticism and power at guard, he's going to be, his ceiling, I just think is tremendously high in terms of what he could accomplish for OU, what he can do for OU. He's just so consistently mauling guys that it's hard for me to understand why On3 sort of has him rated so low. I mean, again, it'd be one thing if he was just powerful but kind of plodding, but you can see from some of these highlights, just his agility and his ability to move. And he's also got, a big wingspan. He's just burying that guy. That guy's, he's about to throw that guy in the end zone about 8 yards deep there. He comes out, pushes there, cleans that out. This guy tries to move inside on him, and he just stones him. He's just a big, physical, offensive guard with excellent agility. I just think this is a huge pickup for OU in terms of his skill level and his talent, just based on his film. So overall, what does this mean for OU offensive line recruiting? Again, I think this is a huge addition. I'm going to repeat my silly pun from Twitter and X. Both literally and figuratively, this was a huge commit for Bill Bedenbaugh and OU and for their offensive line recruiting. In the official month of June, OU used most of their official visits in June. OU only hosted one interior offensive line prospect, Darius Afalava. That's it. If OU missed on Darius, then they were looking at a total reset of interior offensive line recruiting, requiring either a series of new offers and new evaluations, or OU determining if they wanted to go back to some of their previous targets in the offensive line. There's several guard tackle guys that OU didn't focus on because of the elite tackles that they were so heavily involved in. So they could go back to some of those guys, but at this point, several of them are already made commitments elsewhere. So OU would have to engage a lot of energy to flip them. And it's a dead month. They can't use official visits at the end of July unless there's a rule change that hasn't been clarified. So we're talking basically interior offensive line recruiting would be basically stalled until September, and OU would have to re-energize some of those efforts to get guys back on campus. So it would either be heavy film evaluations of players who are uncommitted, see if OU can find somebody they like, or again, offering some guys that they didn't offer before that maybe wanted an OU offer and are verbaled elsewhere, and see if they can flip them. But either path is leading to a lot of effort and leading to probably some official visits in September and continued recruiting in September at the interior line position. So OU gambled on Darius Afalava or bust at guard, and they won. They just simply won. And for Bill to go to Utah, pick up an offensive lineman from the state of Utah who Utah heavily wanted. The Utes wanted Afalava. They do, and Utah does an excellent job developing NFL offensive linemen. Now, the majority of them are poly Samoan kids. Utah does a good job developing those offensive line. So for OU to have made that kind of move in Utah and pick up probably the best offensive lineman in Utah in this cycle, that's a big win. I don't think you should discount the fact that Washington, one of the places he officially visited, he has a cousin that plays there. So OU was able to really sell their holistic approach to recruiting. When you hear Darius in interviews, he was really impressed with Soul Mission. He was impressed with Brent Venables wanting to make sure players graduate, make sure players develop life skills, and that they have a plan after football. And that really resonated with Darius. He really bought into that sales pitch, which Brent's really genuine about. He's not just talking there. You can tell the Soul Mission trips to other places were very important to Darius based upon the interviews I saw, both at Sooner Scoop and the really good interview he did with the Sooner or Later podcast that had him the night before he made his decision. So I think, from that perspective, OU did a great job recruiting him. Bill really emphasized, I'm going to work you hard, but I care about you. We want you to be. We want to work you hard. We want to make you the best person and the best football player you can be. And we're going to combine those efforts. And that message really landed with Darius. So that's a big recruiting win for OU because, like I said, they didn't. Well, I think Bill was talking to Darius, probably for a while in the spring. They didn't actually give him an official offer until he visited for the spring game. So, from a certain perspective, you can say that, Bill landed Darius in about 90 to 120 days, which is pretty impressive from a recruiting standpoint. And like I said, his offers are clearly indicate that he's not the 76th interior offensive lineman in the country. And also, it indicates a little bit that the SEC message is working for OU. Darius, in the interview with Sooner Scoop and Sooner or Later, mentioned that, when he visited for the OU spring game and found out OU was in the SEC and liked OU, that he didn't need to visit any other SEC schools, that OU was going to be the SEC school in the mix. So that's kind of an early win. SEC Day is tomorrow. I'm recording this Sunday night. So that's an early win for OU being able to sell the SEC and being maybe for some West Coast kids, maybe being the easy, closest SEC program or a program that fits so they don't have to, if they, think about they want to play in the SEC, play against the best competition, all of the marketing, branding stuff the SEC has effectively been selling and sells on draft day. OU now maybe for some West Coast kids is maybe could be like a preferred landing spot. In addition, as I said, I think Afalava is a top 200, top 250 kid. You add him to the excellent interior offensive line haul from 2024 that included Eddie Pierre-Louis and Eugene Brooks. OU also currently right now has Daniel Akinkimi working at guard. That might be just to get him acclimated. But if you add Darius Afalava to the guard room, then it opens up the possibility of moving Daniel Akinkimi to right tackle. Daniel has the athleticism and frame to handle that move. So it could be that next year, OU's able to move Daniel Akinkimi to tackle, giving us more competition and talent at tackle because they've moved Darius Afalava into the mix at offensive guard. You've got you've got Waywu and Hatchett and Ozetta currently, and then you've got EPL and Eugene Brooks as the next wave, and you've got Josh Iasosa also part of that group, but he wasn't as highly ranked as Brooks or EPL, but he's obviously developing. So you add just more talent and more depth to the interior offensive line group. That does allow you to maybe have Daniel Ekinkemi as like a flex player as he becomes more familiar and handles that steep competition curve that comes with going from NFL Europe to now college football in the SEC. I also think if Darius enrolls early, it's possible he could be a factor in the two deep but offensive guard in 2025. He's a better offensive guard out of high school than Caden Green. The film supports that statement. And while OU appears to have really good depth at guard, if, for instance, Waywu has a fantastic season this year, maybe he has an all SEC season at guard. That seems a little wild statement to say, from going from North Texas to OU and then being the best guard in the SEC. But his talent level is extreme. Everyone says he looks great. Maybe he has just a fantastic season and goes pro early. Then that could open up a spot for whoever is behind him, and that might be Eugene Brooks, or it could be Eddie Pierre-Louis, or it could be if you've got Gearin Hatchett and Ozetta maybe at one spot, then you've got Eddie Pierre and Eugene maybe at another spot. It opens up a chance for Darius to be a contributor in 2025, depending upon how things work out at guard. If he enrolls in June, I would imagine he'd be looking at a redshirt season. But I think with his skill, his measurables, and everything he brings, then I think a redshirt year would then see him in 2026 definitely being a factor in the two deep at offensive guard. So that's my profile of Darius Afalava. Please click like and subscribe on this video. I'll be back with another commitment profile when OU gets another commitment. There's a chance that should land on SEC Day on tomorrow, on July 1st. But thanks for watching this video, and we'll be back with more profiles when OU gets more commitments.